Okay, picture this. It's the final week of Jesus' life. The guy who, according to the accounts, is out there calming raging storms and raising the dead, walks up to a random fig tree. He's looking for a quick snack, finds absolutely nothing but leaves, and then, well, he essentially throws what looks like a divine tantrum. He curses the tree, saying it'll never bear fruit again, and by the next morning, the thing is completely withered. For 2,000 years, readers have felt incredibly uncomfortable with this story, and in today's explainer, we're going to look at exactly why. Because the confusion all stems from one tiny, bewildering biological fact that the text itself openly admits.
Right, so here is the central conflict of our whole detective story today. Why on earth would Jesus destroy a tree for not bearing fruit when it wasn't even fig season? I mean, think about it. That's like getting furious at an apple tree in the dead of winter. Why curse a tree for a biological reality it literally had zero control over? It just seems completely out of character, doesn't it? But as we're gonna see, Jesus wasn't just having a bad Monday. He was actually making a profound, highly calculated declaration. Let's dive right into the specific detail from Mark chapter 11, verse 13. It says, "He found nothing but leaves because it was not the season for figs." Now, a lot of people read this and completely stumble. It feels like a mistake. But actually, scratch that. This verse isn't a problem with the story at all. It's our very first clue. To understand exactly why this out-of-season detail is intentionally included, we have to look at the brilliant way the author Mark actually constructed his writing. To solve this mystery, we need to understand a specific literary technique. It's called intercalation, or as scholars lovingly call it, the Markian sandwich. You see, Mark writes with just incredible literary precision. He deliberately takes one story and then interrupts it by shoving a completely different story right in the middle. And he does this because the two stories are meant to interpret each other. The outer story frames the inner story, and the inner one illuminates the outer one. Basically, you can't fully understand one without the other. They're a package deal. And this illustrates the exact structure of Mark chapter 11 perfectly. Look at the outer frame of the story. Jesus curses the fig tree, and then later it withers. But right in the middle, the meat of the sandwich, so to speak, Jesus enters the temple in Jerusalem and aggressively drives out the buyers and sellers. These are not just two separate random events that happen to fall on the same day. Mark is explicitly telling us, hey, pay attention. The fig tree and the temple are the exact same story. The fig tree is literally a visual commentary on the temple. Now, what's really fascinating here is that this visual commentary, it wasn't even a new idea. Back in the Old Testament, the fig tree was consistently used as a really powerful symbol for Israel's spiritual condition. Take a look at this quote from the prophet Hosea. God speaks about finding Israel like the first fruit on the fig tree. So it was this image of early promise, an unexpected, delightful relationship that was supposed to develop into full, rich fruitfulness. Let's move over to Jeremiah and see how this imagery builds. In this text, God is speaking in judgment. For centuries, the prophets had been using this exact metaphor, withered leaves and missing fruit, as a divine verdict. You can see the progression happening. It goes from early fruit to no fruit to eventually withered leaves. This was a super well-established metaphor long before Jesus ever walked up to that specific tree. And we see it pop up again right here in Micah, with the prophet lamenting that there's no first-ripe fig that his soul desires. So here is the absolute crucial point. When Jesus walked up to a fig tree looking for fruit and found nothing but leaves, he wasn't just improvising on the spot. Every single reader of the Hebrew Bible knew exactly what category of event they were watching. He was enacting a prophetic script that had been building up for 700 years. But wait, what about the whole out-of-season thing? Right, to understand that out-of-season clue, we have to look into this totally fascinating detail of first-century Palestinian botany. Fig trees follow a very, very specific growth pattern. In early spring, way before the main summer fig harvest, the tree produces these small, edible buds. In Hebrew, they're called pog, and in Arabic, tak. And here is the absolute key to the whole thing. These early, edible buds appear on the branches before the leaves even open. So think about the logic here. If a fig tree already has leaves, it should absolutely already have these early buds. They're a package deal. They appear together. If a tree had full, lush green leaves that you could see from a distance, but absolutely no early buds when you got up close, it wasn't just out of season. It was actively making a false promise. It was wearing this flashy outward appearance of fruitfulness while having absolutely nothing of actual substance to offer. It's the appearance of life totally devoid of the reality of it. Now, take that concept, that false promise, and overlay it directly onto the inner story of our sandwich, the temple. When we map this out side by side, we see that from a distance, the temple looked exactly like a functioning, highly fruitful center of worship. It had all the leaves, the impressive religious activity, the constant sacrifices, the massive commerce of religion. But when Jesus actually got close, he found the fruit was entirely missing. The core substance of true worship was completely, utterly gone. Because what was the reality when you got close? The temple courts were absolutely packed with merchants selling animals and money changers swapping out foreign currency for temple coins. And crucially, they had set up this entire marketplace inside the court of the Gentiles. Now, this was the specific outer court specifically designated for non-Jewish foreigners for all nations to approach God. That vital, sacred space of worship had been completely overrun and entirely displaced by the leaves of highly organized, highly profitable religion. And this is exactly why Jesus flips the tables and quotes two Old Testament prophets at the exact same time. First, he quotes Isaiah 57, reminding everyone the temple was supposed to be a house of prayer for all nations. It was supposed to bear the fruit of bringing the entire world to God. But then, boom, he drops Jeremiah 7, saying they've turned it into a den of robbers. Now think about that phrase. A den of robbers isn't just about stealing money. What is a den? It's a hiding place. The outward appearance of worship was acting as a cover, a literal hideout, masking their total lack of actual covenant faithfulness. Which brings us right back to the conclusion of our outer story. The next morning, Peter notices the tree has withered. But Mark includes a super vital detail here. The tree withered from the roots, not from the branches down. The source itself completely dried up. I mean, if you cut the trunk of a healthy olive tree, its roots will eventually send up new shoots. But when a tree withers from the roots, its generative source is completely dead. Game over. And this directly connects to John the Baptist's massive warning right at the beginning of the gospel. Remember, he announced that the axe was already laid at the root of the trees. Jesus cursing the fig tree was the visible, physical, real-world demonstration of John's exact words. It proved this wasn't just a gentle pruning, it wasn't some temporary reform of the religious system. No, it was a divine declaration that the religious system's core source of life had entirely, permanently dried up. So, breaking this all down into 3 simple steps, we can finally see how this entire Markan sandwich operates as a single, unified prophetic statement. Step 1, the diagnosis. We have a religious establishment with full leaves but zero fruit. Step 2, the judgment, overturning the tables, fundamentally disrupting the system that was obstructing true worship. And step 3, the consequence, withering from the roots, officially announcing that the system was simply no longer capable of producing what it was designed to produce. But here's an absolutely crucial detail. The fig tree judgment wasn't just this final bleak word of condemnation. It was actually the announcement of a massive transition. Because shortly after this, Jesus tells the parable of the tenants, and he concludes it with this incredible statement: "The kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a people producing its fruit." See, he's removing all the ambiguity. The goal of fruit hasn't been abandoned at all. The responsibility is just being transferred to a people who will actually step up and produce it. So what does all of this mean for us today? Because look, this explainer isn't just a dry history lesson about first century Judaism. It's honestly a mirror reflecting our own human nature. When we map this onto ourselves, we have to admit we all have this deep, deep tendency to produce leaves without fruit. Leaves are just the appearance of life, right? It's the religious activity, having the correct vocabulary, knowing all the right answers, just showing up. It's what we instinctively grow when we want to look fruitful to everybody else without actually paying the cost of bearing real fruit. Things like genuine faith, mercy, justice, and true, messy substance. Which leads us to our final, somewhat provocative thought for this explainer. The ultimate question of this ancient text really isn't about what Jesus did to a random piece of foliage in the final week of his life. It's a searching, deeply personal agricultural question aimed right at the heart of our own performance. When the impressive outward appearance is stripped away and Jesus walks right past the full, lush green leaves of your life, what does he actually find when he gets close? Think about that for a second. Thanks so much for joining me as we unpack this source material today. I hope it completely changes how you view this incredible story. Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.